Living and breathing La Vida Boa. Welcome to the Boa Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Demore, alongside host Nick Colhay. We're here to have conversations, to inspire, to learn, to educate, to have fun, and to talk about life in general.
In general, this is the Boa Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Colhay, episode 24. Ready to do this, Steve?
Like there's 24 hours in a day. This is episode 24 is right. And we're ready to let's go. A lot of let's going.
La 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 la. Subscribe.
We are very happy to introduce you to someone that is certainly inspirational in my eyes. A young man. The fact that I'm calling you a young man is not scary. Right? Yeah, it's kind of scary.
I mean,
young man in the room
yet. So
yeah, well, they come quickly, my friend. A young man who has had an inspirational life. Someone that I've looked at and from close up and sometimes from far away and seen in awe and been inspired and happy for you. I mean, you've been on many journeys in life, probably none better than having your family, your wife, and your beautiful family. But being an entrepreneur, going on some adventures as a business person, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, lots I haven't heard yet, Jonathan. Pleasure to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It's been a long time since Immaculate High School.
I know, right? You were, I think, what, 99?
I was the class of 2000.
2000. I was 2000.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that connection was here.
There's a connection.
There's a lot of...
Go way back.
Wow.
Way back.
You guys are Mustangs, huh?
We are.
So I'm going to be a little off here because I'm just a wildcat. I'm not going to be able to to get into that with you guys, but that's pretty cool. I'm glad that there's some common ground here between you and my co-host. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you guys.
I appreciate your time, and when I asked, you were all about coming on, and I appreciate that because there's nothing like having conversations with people and inspiring others. Now, a lot of people don't know you. Some of the people watching will certainly know you and know some of your story, maybe all of it.
Sure.
But I mean, I can remember as far back as when you started a company as a young man. I don't want to say how old because I'm not entirely sure how old you are, but earlier than most young men would be getting into business. How old were you, and what did you start off? Talk to us about your first journey into entrepreneurial life.
I mean, the first journey. Yeah, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but when I was a teenager, I would go to Costco and buy candy wholesale and sell it to my peers. And my parents saw me doing this, and my mom would actually take me to Costco, and she's like, "Hey, look, if you want to learn how to buy and sell something, go for it." I almost got suspended from school, and I told my mom, I said, "Look, I love doing business. I love making money." And she actually reached out to the folks at Double Twister. She said, "Hey, look, my son, I think I was 13 or 14 at the time. He really wants to work. So why don't you, go there and interview and see what happens?" And I started working when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and started consistently just like starting businesses and little ideas and projects. And I knew that like this was all like kind of tempering me for whatever I was going to do in the future. And eventually, once I got to college, I had an opportunity to start a business, and it was my senior year in college. And one of my professors was the former VP of marketing for Duracell, and I think it was our senior college project. And he said, "Look, why don't you find a business or an idea that's interesting in like the branding category?" And I had this great family barbecue sauce recipe that my mom would make all the time, and I started thinking about that and doing research in like the grocery category. And I saw this interesting pain point in the category where a lot of like specialty, like organic, natural brands were very regionally focused. And I thought, it dawned on me, I said, eventually these natural organic brands are going to become mainstream. They're going to go from like being isolated to like New England and being these like local, hometown products to eventually becoming brands that are featured across the country. And I said, you know what, why don't I build something that with that theory that, natural specialty will become mainstream and see where it goes. And found manufacturers, found distributors. I found brokers and buyers and packaging. And I literally like jumped in head first and consumed myself with that business. And within 2.5 years, we were in over like 15,000 stores nationally. Literally every major retailer across the country. I think I got around about $3 million in slotting allowances, didn't pay for any placement that I got. I was just a young entrepreneur, like super naive, just selling, going across the country, building relationships, and making a ton of mistakes. But I was in my early 20s at that time. And I guess what was interesting was I was growing way too quickly, and I was completely like ridiculously undercapitalized. But I had this awesome model where it was basically I was a marketing engine. I created this brand. I had outsourced co-packers and manufacturers, distributors, and I had one in New Haven and one down in Florida. I was literally like a mini Kraft Foods. I was just cranking out product and selling. And it's funny because like when you're building a consumer brand, and a lot of people ask me this today, they're like, oh, I want to start this, and this product. And I usually tell them not to because I mean, the food industry is like notorious for like a very low margin business. Like your gross margins are like 40 or 45%. Your net margins are like 8 to 10%. Unless you're like really well capitalized, it's very difficult. So like getting on the shelf is easy. It's getting off the shelf is the hard part. And I realized that very quickly, and then compounded, going into 2008, not knowing that, the world was going to collapse in a huge recession. It was like a series of events that, really tested me as an entrepreneur. I remember going through situations where, I had just launched the brand nationally, and this was like, I think it was like summer of 2008. One of my main manufacturer calls me and says, hey, we weren't hedged against the commodity markets, and, we're going to have to give you a price increase. And like I had mentioned, like gross margins around 40%, they hit me with a 20% price increase. I was already like, quickly in the red. Had to scramble, find, a new manufacturer. A month after that, while I'm trying to scramble to find a manufacturer, they tell me that they're going into bankruptcy. So here I am dealing with them going to bankruptcy. I've got retailers hounding me for orders across the country. I can't fulfill orders. I literally had, flew across the country, met with like buyers from like Walmart and Safeway and Whole Foods and Kroger, and said, look, I know you just let me into your store for free. Give me a shot here. I'm trying to navigate this in the midst of, the world collapsing. Because by this point, like, September had hit and I was dealing with all this stuff. But it was very much like having open and honest conversations and laying all your cards out on the table. And it's something that like when you like deal with a very challenging time, being honest and transparent with people and vulnerable, I think goes a very long way in business. And it's something that really, helped me navigate through that. I was able to, buy myself enough time to find a new manufacturer in Indianapolis, restructured pricing, got my formulations in order, and, we were on track to do multi-millions of dollars worth of business that year. That got decimated. I spent probably 75% of the year just trying to restructure the business and navigate all the stuff that was happening. And once we started shipping out orders, it was December of 2008. I'm sending out, I'll send out like a $50,000 order, $100,000 order, and I would get checks back for $3, $15, $150, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, what is this? So I started reaching out to the purchasing departments and I said, hey, unfortunately, we had to send you your product to reclamation. And what happens with spoilage and reclamation is that if you have a product, that had a label on it and it was damaged, they'll throw it in the garbage and bill the manufacturer back for it. So come to find out, once the kind of the markets collapsed and everything was happening, my label manufacturer was cutting corners producing labels. And there's a clear coat that kind of goes over your label to kind of seal in the ink and the art that's on the label. Well, it didn't have that. So in transit, bottles were scraping and scratching. And once they got to the store shelves, they looked like absolute shit. It was horrible, literally like scratched up, messed up. So here I was, 24 years old or however I was, with $400,000 in debt, literally up to my eyeballs. And everyone saw this outward success. And meanwhile, I was dealing with crazy depression. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. But it's something that thanks to like the support of my family, like a lot of faith and determination, like I just had to power through it. I had a board at the time who basically said, Jonathan, I think it's time that you have to file for bankruptcy. Like this is, you can't sustain this. And I said, no, like I've got too much invested in this. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm at peace with, walking away from the business. There's still something here. So, at that point, I basically had to do a national recall. I lost like 80% of the distribution that I had. It was like really tough for me because I had spent 2.5 years building up all these accounts. Like literally, like most people that, go and launch, food brands, like it takes them like 5, 7, 10 years to get that level of distribution. And I did it in like 2.5. And it was just something that I was proud of myself for of doing that. So that was a big hit. But while this was all happening, a venture capitalist who I had met in the early days of the business reached out to me. And he actually was my uncle, Ahmed, introduced me to him when I first started the business. And he flew up from Florida and sat with me. I remember this conversation, and I was telling him about all my ambitions about building a food brand. And he's like, a barbecue sauce? You're from Connecticut? Like, seriously? I'm like, I know, but it's amazing. And I'm going to be national and do all these things. I'm going to be in every major supermarket. I'm going to do this, and that. And I mapped out everything. And I guess my uncle had spoke to him because he asked him what was going on with me. And my uncle told him, like, hey, here's what's going on with his business and whatnot. Next thing I know, I've got an email with a term sheet for like $500,000. And he's like, hey, Jonathan, I heard about what happened. And I was blindsided because I wasn't even expecting this to happen because I wasn't, actively reaching out to him. But he said that I said, look, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you and see what your thoughts are with this. And he's like, look, he goes, I've met with a lot of entrepreneurs. He goes, you were one of the only ones that actually did every single thing that he said that he was going to do. He goes, I hear a lot of talk and a lot of people that say they promise these things, but you actually went out and did it. And he goes, I want to put my money behind people like that. And I said to him, I really appreciate that. And this took a lot for me because I knew that in the midst of all this, like how valuable that capital would have been to me. And I said, to be honest, like your relationship is worth more to me than that money. And I can't take your money in good conscience because I know that to do this again and build the business back up, it's going to take millions of dollars. And literally, that money that you have, it'll be burnt away. And I don't want to risk, my reputation and whatnot. And my board at the time thought I was absolutely crazy. They're like, Jonathan, you've lost it. You don't know what you're talking about. You're off the deep end. Like, why would you not take this money? And I said, what? Something in my gut and my spirit, like it doesn't feel right for me to take this money. And what was interesting was about 4 months earlier, I had pursued a claim against that label manufacturer to bring the story full circle. And it was like kind of a Hail Mary kind of situation. And a week after I turned down the money, I get an email from them saying that they wanted to have a conversation with me about settling my claim. I'm like, all right, they're going to give me a couple $1,000, like have me like, shoo away. And basically it was everything I asked for. And at that point I was able to pay off all the debt in the business, everyone that, I owed any money to, and put some money in my pocket and walk away, clean. And at that point I was like, all right, I've built this, I proved myself. Now it's time that I can, put this business to bed and move on. And it's funny because still people to this day are like, oh, you had this huge business, you sold it for millions of dollars. I'm like, you have no effing clue what you're talking about. No, that's not what happened.
Isn't it funny how these stories can like have a life of their own?
Oh my God. Yeah.
I never really knew. It's fascinating you're telling me this because I really never knew the outcome. I was actually going to say, it's like, is that brand even out there anymore? Did anybody co-opt it?
I hope not. I mean, I have people that are like, oh yeah, I still have that bottle. I'm like, don't eat that. It's like 15 years old. Like, don't do that.
Wow, what an unbelievable story. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine what you learned in the process of all that?
Oh my God, that was like the biggest MBA experience that I could ever imagine. Like that was just like, it was incredible.
And in such a short amount of time, you mentioned people, going over so many years of experience just to get to a certain point. And within 2.5 years, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was great. I had a lot of great people around me, a lot of great mentors. We talked about mentors and I was always someone that like growing up, like I always wanted to surround myself with successful people. It's, even when I was mentioned earlier, like when I was working at Double Twister at the ice cream shop, when I was like a teenager, like, one of the things I enjoyed aside from scooping ice cream was just going in the back and talking to Al, who's, your uncle.
Yeah. My godfather, my uncle. It's funny. I had a conversation with the other day, and it was the first time I had a conversation with him about specifically mentoring, and how when he was first involved in business at the Old Oak, his mentor was the owner at the time, an Italian man that he feels he owes a lot of his success to, because he was kind of someone that showed him the ropes. And I think that's why these conversations are important, because it's, like I said earlier off air, sometimes it's a cheap method of getting mentors, or these masterminds, because I, like you, agree that you want to surround yourself, like my co-hosts, my family members, my friends, surround yourself with the kind of people you want to be like. Someone famous and smarter than me once said, show me the people you surround yourself with and I'll show you who you are. So I think it's important that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to find entrepreneurs. You want to be a good person, find people that are good. I mean, you try to kind of find maybe a medley of all those things and the people that you surround yourself with. But the proof is in the pudding. It may have not been the outcome you desired, but it was certainly maybe the outcome you needed. Oh, sure. A learning process, and then ultimately an outcome that you could live with, that you were happy with.
I mean, if I had to go through that 10 times over to get to where I am today, I would gladly experience that again. Even worse, I mean, it made me into who I am today. It, queued me up for the next business I was going to do. It taught me a tremendous amount. It humbled me. Because I remember, like, when I was building that business, like, I had a crazy ego. Here I was on TV. I was in newspapers. Like, I was in magazines. And back then, like, young entrepreneurs aren't what they are today. Being in your early 20s, it was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Like, and this is like 2005, and now you have a 20-year-old entrepreneur that's starting a tech company or whatever. They're like God. Back then, it wasn't the case. Like, you couldn't raise money. People didn't take you seriously, and it was an uphill battle. So I'm super proud of experiencing that and just learning from it and using those learnings into other stuff that I've done since then.
Yeah. I think you spent yourself in the arena, and I think you come out better for it. It's always scary to follow your dreams, but I mean, I didn't realize you were buying and selling candy at such an early age. I mean, from the moment, from early on, you had kind of the bug to be an entrepreneur. I think
always surrounded by entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I mean, our families, like everyone around us, like, immigrant families, like very much like entrepreneurial minded. Some worked in the corporate world, others, were starting businesses. I mean, most of my aunts had started companies, so I had a lot of female entrepreneurs around me, and other folks that are just, I looked up to. So
when you started that journey, let's say, all right, first of all, what did your professor give you on that grade in that class?
I mean, I hope he gave me an A. I added him to my board eventually. So
once you started that, who were some of your mentors personally? Like, who are people that we're going to know that actually helped you along the way? Because obviously, young 20-year-old male, a lot of ego.
Sure. I mean, I would say my dad was definitely a big mentor for me. He's a lifer. I was a lifer at GE, and I'm phenomenal salesman. So I really learned a lot of my sales skills from him. My mom with her phenomenal cooking skills and just her personality. And I know these aren't like business mentors per se, but they're the ones that gave me the tools that I needed to build up trust and to be confident in myself. Because being an entrepreneur, it takes a tremendous amount of confidence, and that was like the foundation. And then from there, it was like I would reach out to anyone who I could just for like nuggets of information. I didn't have too many folks that were like consistent mentors for me, but I was constantly reaching out to people and building relationships. I remember, one time I got into my head, as a funny story. I wanted to talk to the CEO of Costco. And I said, you know what, I'm going to call him. And I literally just picked up a phone and I called the CEO of Costco. And he picked up. And I literally was like, because I wasn't expecting to pick up the phone. I'm like, all right, see what happens. And he picked up and I had a conversation with him. And come to find out, at that time I was in Stu Leonard's, and he was good friends with Stu Jr. And I said, I really would love to be in your store. Any advice you could have for me. And he's like, he spent like 10 minutes on the phone with me talking to me, and he said, oh, by the way, why don't you call, this guy Hassan? He's down in Virginia, and tell him that you actually got a hold of me. And next thing I know, I had a meeting, down in Virginia, and I got into, a handful of Costco's in the Northeast. And it was like, I have so many stories like that of just like reaching out to random, like high profile CEOs. And I was a young entrepreneur, and because I was naive and, willing to put myself out there, people want to help out a young guy. So
no fear.
Yeah, no fear.
Yeah, sometimes the world's small. You think, some people are unable to be reached, and here you are talking to someone at the pinnacle of a business. I mean, business like Costco, especially even then, never mind what they are now. It's similar to my experience. I mean, I've had mentors along the way in the different, in the legal community and business. But I think you're fortunate, as I was, to have, mentors, first and foremost, parents. I had my mother, who was, mentored me to be a good person, positive, and my father mentored me to be hardworking and go after my dreams. I think sometimes we take for granted having that, because not everybody does have that. Sure. And it's something that I think as then becoming a parent, I try to be cognizant of how much influence I'm going to have over my kids, and even to a certain extent what I should be doing as a husband and certainly as a friend, but, trying to be a mentor in every facet. Now, I've had the product, so I can say that the product was fantastic.
Yeah, it was pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that you had a product that was easy to sell because you believed in it and your mother made it, sure, I'm sure gave you a little extra push to want to follow this thing through and all that stuff. And going on and segueing into different businesses where it's not so personal. Mm-hmm. I mean, what pushed you to then, go into these new areas and then to achieve the success that you have achieved?
Sure. I like the idea of reinventing myself. And when I had closed that business down, it was a very transitional period in my life. I was living in Connecticut, literally running this business out of my parents' basement, and I packed up everything else and I moved to the city, and I said, all right, I'm going to kind of start fresh and see where things go. And I started doing a lot of research, and I really was drawn to the technology space, and I loved the idea of building software. Didn't know anything about it. I wasn't a developer, not a coder, but I knew business and I knew numbers, and I looked at the margins of like software as a service and things of that nature. Yeah. And it's like, 70% margins. And here I was in consumer products making like 10% margins. And I'm like, all right, just numbers alone, this looks kind of interesting. And then I figured that the future was going to be, very technology driven. So I said, let me, learn what I can about building, software. And it's funny because that like brought me back to Connecticut, where a friend of mine introduced me to the small technology studio digital agency it was called Moon Media at the time, and met with the owner, who was a few years younger than me, and told him about this idea that I was working on. It was like this e-commerce platform, kind of an aggregator, called Shop Cloud. And I was like, hey, want to collaborate with this and build it together. And we started working on it, and quickly realized that this was going to be something that was going to be a bit larger for us to bite off. And he approached me and said, hey, look, I think, the past month, we've had a phenomenal experience. What do you think about coming on as my partner? He's like, I'm a tech guy, I'm a developer, but I don't have a business guy that understands technology, can communicate it eloquently and sell that, and knows operations that can actually build this out. And I was like, you know what? This is my opportunity to worst case if it doesn't work, it's a learning experience, which I was all about. So I jumped in head first, literally consumed myself with all different kinds of learning about frameworks and technologies and building websites and mobile apps and all this kind of stuff. And within a year, we tripled the business, went from 3 of us to 10 people. That second year in business, we started scaling even more. We were cranking, and we rebranded it to Moo Digital, to be less of a media company, more of like a digital agency, and doing a lot of full service stuff, doing some design work, doing development, doing a bunch of things. And that's where I started learning more and more about the agency world. And I saw a tremendous pain point that, digital and creative agencies would be competing for a lot of these larger digital initiatives. Like everyone wanted to be digital, but at that time in like 2011, 2012, not everyone knew how. And a lot of these agencies were using freelancers and offshore resources and, companies in India and whatnot. And I was like, this isn't sustainable. If Kraft Foods or another company or IBM goes and says, hey, I want a website and they're going to pay $1 million for it. They don't want an agency that's paying a developer in India $15 an hour to be building it for them. They want value. They want quality. And I started building out a model within the business about being a technology partner for agencies. And I wanted to double down on that. And at that time, my partner and I, we weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye in terms of like the future of the business. My intentions were to really have a very niche focused business because I believe like if you're going to do something, do one thing ridiculously well. I love the idea of hyper specialization. And I said, if we double down on technology and kind of carve out a lot of the fat of the business, we can really build something truly profitable and have complete control. That didn't obviously, bode well between us. Like, in any partnership, you have disagreements. You don't always kind of align yourselves in the same fashion. And I saw an opportunity there for me to buy him out. And it's funny because, like, my wife tells me this all the time. She's like, when it rains, it pours. And, we are both like rocks for each other. She's super successful in her own right. She has a phenomenal career, and now she's an entrepreneur herself. But at that time, we were getting married. So here I was, we had a wedding in a few months. I was about to buy out my former business partner. Everything was like kind of colliding all at the same time. And, everything happens for a reason, and the stars aligned, and I was able to buy him out. We got married, rolled the dice, and there I was at a point where here I had the foundation for a technology company that I spent 2 years learning and consuming myself with. And, we rebranded the business to Agency Labs, which is the name it is today. And we started out becoming or being that development partner for agencies. And basically that allowed us to work on some massive websites, mobile apps, custom software for companies like IBM, Ford, Lincoln, Thomson Reuters. Most major Fortune 500 companies we've touched in some way, shape, or form. And that allowed us to build up a huge portfolio and reputation. And one of the things that I love is that, I have a team that, saw the risk that I took and, saw the transparency that I gave them in terms of like what my plans were. And they became my ride or dies. Like they were there, they saw me through it, they trusted me. And, since then we've built out the business into, what it is today. It's successful. It's very profitable. We do a lot of work with a lot of global brands. We've expanded the business to not only work with like traditional agencies, but we also work with in-house agencies. So I kind of saw this additional trend, whereas large corporations who didn't want to spend like the exuberant agency fees would eventually build out their own in-house teams. But they would still run into the same technology issues that most agencies would run into, being that, limited resources, limited access to quality developers, to maintain it. But most importantly, being able to manage like all these different technologies. There's tons of technologies out there, and it's impossible for one developer to know everything. So having a partner that almost operates as a Swiss Army knife that can help them tackle these different objectives, and that can deliver consistently and communicate clearly, it's worth its weight in gold. And we built a really great relationship with Boehringer Ingelheim. So we were their one of 2 development partners for North America. We started working with Brookfield Asset Management, Yale University. So with Yale, we're one of 2 development shops that work with them on a framework called Drupal that they build all their websites off of. We've worked with a number of pharmaceutical companies, and kind of the list goes on of just organizations that really value technology, really value a good development partner. And it's allowed us to just really build a lot of cool things and show people that like building technology doesn't have to be scary, because a lot of people become vulnerable when they start talking about technology or thinking about things. Oh, I want to build an app. I want to build this. And, it's something that a lot of people, when they start going down that path, whether you're on the corporate side or on the entrepreneurial side, there's a lot of unknowns. And I like the idea that we can be that trusted partner that can help them navigate that so they don't make a lot of the mistakes that a lot of people are typically used to.
That's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of the confidence that you got from doing what you did early on gave you that confidence to say, yeah, I'm taking this all on and I'm going to go for it. Sure. To me, it's amazing how these times come in your life where you're just inundated with a bunch of different life decisions. I remember the same in my life. It's like starting a new business, being married, redoing my home. Sometimes it all comes at once and you got to be ready for it. But I love what you said before you went into your process of and your development into where your company was and where it went. Where you said you love reinventing yourself and in a sense you like rebranding your company too. I think that's one of the most unbelievable features that we have in life that I think sometimes we don't really understand is that like tomorrow's a new day.
Sure.
It doesn't matter where you've been, what you do, like tomorrow you can reinvent yourself. You can decide to be someone else, someone better, someone, nicer, someone that, is pushing forward instead of, being stuck in the ordinary. And I love that you say that because it's something I've always wanted to say in the podcast. And I feel like I've never said it. And you said it, and it gives me the opportunity to just say, yeah, you know what? That's like the hope for tomorrow. Like sure. Reinvent yourself. You've been an entrepreneur probably since the day you were born, right? Early on, you felt like that's what you wanted to do. And no matter what was in front of you, you weren't going to let a failure and I wouldn't even say that was a failure. Cause to me, everything that you do is a learning experience, developing you for the future. But when you can have that mindset that, tomorrow could be something different, do something different. It's just like take on a new challenge. And, I love that mindset. Nick and I always talk about, having certain mindsets and certain routines and being consistent with things. And then there's that, rebranding and reinventing yourself. Like sometimes don't be afraid to try something new. And then if you want to be successful in that, then you got to be consistent in what you're doing. I think we can all relate to trying to be consistent and rebranding ourselves when it comes to family life. So we all have our entrepreneurial sides. We're into business and we're into we haven't gotten into fitness and health with you. I'm sure we'll be diving into that soon. I hope you're not like me. I hope you're more like Nick when it comes to that.
You seem like a busy guy, man. You got your hands full.
Yeah, but how do you? This is like my one thing. I mean, I keep on leaning on the BOA life really being a life of balance, right? Mm-hmm. Following your dreams, working hard to achieve them, being successful in life, whether it's in business or your career or your profession, whatever it is. But then certainly if you have a family or if you have friends, people that you love, for yourself, we need to make time for ourselves. What are you doing? Because I know when you're an entrepreneur, you're 100% an entrepreneur. But Nick and I like to talk about 80-20. Like, whoa, don't like you're not going to be healthy if you're completely doing one thing. And by the way, you've already alluded to your relationship with your wife and her being your rock. I know that you're probably diving into that field as well as making sure that you're doing what you can in your relationship. I need to do more. I'm not always being the best husband or father I can be because I get my mind stuck on, trying to do the best I can in my work or trying to push the podcast, hiccuping on what I'm doing physically for myself, fitness wise, and sticking to that routine. What can you share with the audience on how you may or may not be balanced in your life when it comes to, and I don't like saying work-life balance because that's, sometimes can be corny, but what are you doing to make sure that you're staying as balanced as you can be?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. I'll be honest, like for the longest time, like I haven't had a lot of balance. I was, someone that was always business all the time. When I was running the food company, I was working 100-hour weeks, like a madman. Well, not 100, maybe 80-hour weeks, like a madman. This business, I'm the quintessential, like I put everything before my health. And I think the pandemic like really shook that up for me. And I would say about a year ago, I started really doing some soul searching, thinking about myself, thinking about, why, I do the things that I do and how come, from focus to, to health, to family time, to being engaged, to, being able to be present in the moment, like all these things that like my wife would talk to me about consistently. We'd have these conversations about. And one thing that I love about her and I appreciate about her is that, she pushes me to be the best version of myself. And I think that's a great thing to have in a partner who knows what your potential is. And I do very much do the same for her. But she's really been on me to do that, and also giving me the ability to find that on my own way. So one of the things that I started looking into in terms of like health and wellness about a year ago was I went through like my own personal journey about like thinking about like, mental health and like depression and what I'd gone through with that first business that I talked about. And I just noticed that like there's something about me like wasn't the same. And I felt like I was a fraction of my younger self. And I was like, why is that? What is it about me? Why don't I have that spark? Why don't I have that energy? Why don't I have, this anxiety? And it's like you talk to doctors and it's like, oh, well, there's a pill for that, or you take this for that. And I'm not someone that like is looking for a diagnosis. I want to find the root cause of why I'm operating a certain way. I wasn't working out at all. Literally for years, I didn't work out. And I grew up like, playing soccer, not as good as,
Wow. That's
but yeah, I was okay. I was a decent soccer player. He'd run circles around me with one leg, but I was always like in good shape. And then, I just let that go, and from just focusing on my business and putting everything, aside from my health first. And I started like just talking to doctors, having conversations, and doing research online. And I started gravitating towards like, functional medicine and things of that nature, and like in your hormone levels. And I just went down this rabbit hole of understanding like your physiology and your body composition. And about a year ago, I was like, you know what, I want to understand more about my body and more about like, what makes me me. And I went to my doctor. I said, look, I want to run some tests. And, I started learning about biomarkers. And I was like, can you run this? He goes, oh, that's foofy stuff. Why do you want to do that? That's not important. I was like, all right, well, let me just see like what labs you've run for me. And it's like, oh, here's your vitamin D and whatnot. And I said, all right, well, what's my testosterone level? And he's like, well, why do you want to do that? Do you have like any sexual, side effects or whatnot? And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, look, this is about me. Like, I just want to know about me. I was like, I feel like lethargic. I feel like periods of like depression. Like I don't have as much drive as I used to. Like I'll work out and I don't see the results. Like, I mean, there's something that's going on there that I know myself. And he's like, I don't know. He goes, don't worry about that. He goes, just go to the gym, work out more, and like, your body will take care of it. Went to another doctor, and they said, look, are you a hypochondriac? Like, there's nothing wrong with you. I was like, it got to the point where like I couldn't get a doctor to just like run some basic like blood work that I wanted to do. So I started doing some research, and I found like an online laboratory that will actually like fill a script for you, and you take it to Quest. And I literally did a full on like panel blood test of everything. And it came back, and my testosterone level was through the friggin' floor. And I went to my doctor and I was like, you told me everything was fine. Like, this explains everything, because your testosterone levels manage your energy, they manage your physique, they manage, your drive. And, everyone thinks like testosterone is like, on like the sexual health side, but that's only a fraction of it. And it's everything that makes us who we are. And I see you nodding your head. Like, I'm sure that a lot of this like resonates with a lot of things that you've learned, you've studied over the years. But it's like, I was like, what? I think I found like a crux. And that to me was like the light bulb went off. And I started doing research onto like concierge medicine, because, the way that like the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industry works today is that, you basically, to put things in perspective, the levels that I had was that of like an 80-year-old man. And insurance wouldn't even cover me getting treatment unless I was even lower than that. And I said, this is absolutely absurd. So now I got to pay out of pocket for this, which I was like, you know what? I'm tired of going the traditional route. If I want to work on myself, I want to really look at the whole picture and nip these things in the bud and figure them out. And I found a doctor who had specializes in this and like hormone replacement therapy. And it was like one of the most life-changing things that I ever did. It gave me like just a new sense in life. And I'm working out now. Like I have a tremendous amount of energy. Like, when it comes to like being at night, like I don't feel like I just like drown myself in my phone. Like I'm present with my wife and my kids. Like I'm there. I'm the Jonathan that I was when I was 20 with that spark and that vigor for life. And having that when you're, I'm 37, but having that at this point in my life is pretty amazing for me. And it's something that I love. And as I started doing more and more research, the crazy thing is that like, if you look at like, I know I keep harping on like testosterone, but it's like our generation, the wild thing is that our testosterone level is 30% lower than our parents.
No, it's
bananas.
It's funny that you say all this because, as I said before, I think maybe before we're on camera or officially filming, we do this for a reason, and it's ironic that you bring this up because I had been looking recently at. We had a prior guest, actually a female, talking to us about, going out there and getting specialty testing to see what foods are compatible with you and this and that. But I've also been looking at, it is amazing how much need there are now for guys, especially in our area, in our age group, that are really requiring, and it's funny you say that, the levels are lower than they used to be. That makes sense because there are a lot of men that are deficient in testosterone and probably could be in need of it. And there's a lot of, bodybuilders, I'm sure, and, a lot of other podcasts that have more information than we do, probably the kind of information you have because you obviously have needed to do the information, or do the research because it was affecting you specifically. But it's a big issue nowadays, and I don't know whether it's environmental or what the reason is, but a lot of things that sperm counts are lower in men. I think the grip, the handshake, the magnitude by which a man will grab another man, and the pressure has reduced, and I don't know what exactly all that is, but you have to be receptive, I think, sometimes to understanding like something's off and being forceful and being proactive and trying to find a solution. Because it's something that by your own testimony, like now you're living a better life just because you knew there was something wrong and you were looking to uncover it. Sometimes we're afraid to look for the truth. Sometimes we're afraid to do the things that are necessary for whatever reason. We've had this talk plenty of times that, sometimes guys are, it's just me, and the guy thing to do is like not look into things, and it's
taboo, or it's too.
It makes no sense. It's like your mental and physical health. Like you should be doing whatever you can, and if not for your own sake, for the sake of your children and your kids, or if you don't have those, for your friends, for your loved ones, so that you're living your best self. But that it's interesting that you point that out because I think there's a lot of issues that are popping up in men, and sometimes they don't realize it. And listening to a podcast today and hearing that, and say, well, maybe that's what I'm having trouble with. Maybe that's my problem, and that's why these stories and these discussions I think are invaluable because they open your eyes up to so many different things. Whether it's something that can benefit you by way of health or push you to keep trying to be a successful business person or finding the right balance in your life. So I'm so happy you shared that because I think that's something that I need to do. I think the last time we had a podcast or two ago, like I said, it was really evaluating some of the things, whether it comes to blood work or what was it, food allergies, Nick? It was like some of the things that you eat that you're basically causing inflammation and
basically how your DNA is made up, like what things are good for your specific blood type. It's the easiest way to put it. It's like having an allergy. I may be allergic to something and you guys aren't. It's the same kind of thing. Like what foods make you and lifestyle, make you optimal or, not do good. So it's interesting how casual you put it. It sounds easy and everything. It's like I just investigated, went to a doctor, they said no, and then they said, what are you worried about? But you kept digging, and we talk about guys in general. It's like I think they just don't want to hear the truth. They're afraid of the answer they might get. Sure. That's the truth because it's scary.
Yeah, but even like he said, the doctor's like, "What are you? What was the word? What are you up? hypochondriac, like exactly. It's like I shouldn't even be asking of like, I feel like there's something off here. It's like, and I remember, sadly enough, and talking to my dad about my mother and when she was it's a fascinating how well we are connected in this world. I don't know if you know this, the guest, and his mother and my mother were like best friends.
I did not know that.
Which is, here we are.
Friends,
they were best friends. But anyway, so my mother and people who watch our podcast, or maybe you're just coming on for the first time to listen to Jonathan. I lost my mother to cancer, and when she was younger, not younger, but a young woman, she just always felt like there was something off, and would tell the doctor, and hey, it's in your head, it's this and that, and in retrospect, maybe if she was a little bit like Jonathan and proactive about it, and sometimes, you got to push when you feel like, there's something not right to try to resolve it. Cause it could be something as silly as some of your levels are off, whether it be, testosterone or whatever it is. And these are vital things to keeping everything in balance and keeping us in the right frame of mind and everything. Like you said, what you said was kind of scary, because I related in a bad way. It's like I find myself sometimes a slave to my phone at night instead of being present with my wife and kids. To the point where my kids or my wife will be like, "Put your phone away, Dad." Yeah. Whereas like I almost hope I've been on my phone so much during the day for work that I can get home and plug it in, so that I have no excuse but to plug it in and not be on it. And for whatever reason that is, you get caught in ruts. And those ruts can, take you away from other things,
Phone's there. I mean, it fills a void. And to me, I was trying to figure out what that void was. Why was I scrolling on social media? Why was I consuming this content? Was it because I was like engaged and I want to learn? Or was it because I was depressed and I was bored? And to have a beautiful family and to have like an amazing wife and a beautiful home and not be just overjoyed and consumed by that, those were just these red flags that kept coming up, that I was like, all right, there's something that I got to get to the bottom of. And there was no reason why I should have been acting or doing what I had done. And this was like for years, like I just saw myself kind of going down this like rabbit hole of just like being consumed by technology and being consumed by all of these distractions. And it just and it wasn't good. And I'm glad that I pushed myself, because like you mentioned, the healthcare system, it's so reactive instead of proactive. And I think that as individuals, we have access to so much information now. I know that people like, make fun of like, Googling your health and all that kind of stuff, but it's not about Googling your health and being like a Google doctor. It's about just, being curious and learning and not settling for whatever diagnosis, because that's why you get doctors who prescribe one thing and then you've got to prescribe 3 things to deal with the side effects from that one thing. It's because it's not fixing the root cause. It's just appeasing, one of the ailments, and it's propping up other things. I think if people really had a better understanding of themselves and their physiology at a micro level, I think, healthcare as a whole would be drastically different. But that doesn't happen because, drug companies, it's a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, there's no money in preventative.
Exactly.
The money is in reactive medicating. But yeah, I think the key to that is, being involved in one's own health, being engaged in self-care, I think is important. Just like it is to make your mental health and your physical health a priority in your life. And, that's where I have always lacked, and where I have to make sure I'm better I'm better with myself, because when you're being better with yourself, then you can be better with others. Because I think that is sometimes where I can find myself in a rut when I get off of my, physical fitness regimen, then it affects me in every single way. It's like I read this, I'm assuming I've read it in multiple places, so I'm assuming it's correct, but you never know. You read stuff and sometimes it's not. But when you have an alarm set and you hit the snooze button, apparently it's the worst thing you can do is hit the snooze button. It messes with your sleeping patterns. It does all kinds of bad things.
I slam the snooze button.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right. Yeah. So I find when I start doing that, It's not a good thing. Like I set the alarm, I wake up, I go to the gym. When you hit the snooze, the last thing you want to do is change your mind in the middle of the night when you wake up to go to the bathroom or when you're first getting up. Like, oh, maybe today's not a good day to go to the gym. It's like whatever you decide at night, and we've talked about this, to do tomorrow, like do it. Because if you don't do it, it's the first fail of the day. So do you want your first thing in the morning to be a win or a fail? And I find, every once in a while, it's okay to be that. We talk about 80-20. Like most of the time, be on the right path. Every once in a while, let yourself off the hook. But the slippery slope is that sometimes you let the 20% start getting into like 50%, then you got a problem, hit the snooze, sleep in. Oh, it's cold out today.
Are you saying that you wake up in the middle of the night and turn the alarm off?
I wake up in the middle of the night and decide I'm not going to go to the gym tomorrow, I think, because I don't feel like I'm sleeping that good, and maybe sleeping a little more is better.
So instead of waiting for the alarm and snoozing it, you just turn it off altogether.
No,
or you don't work out in the morning.
I don't work out in the morning. I get to let the alarm go, and I snooze, and I'm like, I can't go to the gym because the alarm's set for the time that you need to go to the gym. So it's like you're already like, don't let yourself make excuses. And then again, like I said, it's a fail right away. So you have this game plan for the next day. We always talk about, you have a morning routine. I say I have a morning routine, but I set it up at night.
Is it a routine or is it a bum rush?
No, it was typically.
Mine's very much a bum rush.
Well, that's not good.
Wake up, bottles, the bathroom. Like it's. I don't know how people have these things where they wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they have their coffee and they read their whatever, and that's not, because
for a lot of people that's their only time to do it.
Yeah,
like when we've had guests on, it's like that's my time, because especially with a young family, right? With a young family, I've learned that if I try to if I had the gym at the end of the day, it's not happening. Once a week, if you're lucky, you wake up in the morning. If you want to do meditating, breathing exercises, gym, whatever, like do it in the morning, first thing, get it over with before the kids wake up.
Beat the sun.
Yeah, me, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's like my wind down time where I have that like last burst of energy, and it gives me that like extra nudge. The morning, like I'm not a morning person at all, and I knew that going into it. But also too, like for me, like working out, I've always been the person that will work out for 2 weeks and then just forget about it. Like gym owners would love me because, I'd have my membership on autopilot and say, I'm going to go to the gym. And literally 2 years later, it's like, oh, wow, I've been paying,
I'm still paying that.
Whatever. I'm still paying it. But so when I was going through all this stuff, like I went and actually found a personal trainer, and it's like, I'm blessed to be able to do that, but it's something that I fought for the longest time. And I was like, you know what? This is worth its weight in gold. To having the account, like we talked about earlier, before we started, like having that accountability and someone that's going to check in with you and, make sure that you're being consistent. That's really what I needed, because I know that I can easily get distracted by a million things. And that was what really put me into hyperdrive. But for me, like I'm not going to do that at like 5 or 6 in the morning. I have friends of mine that work out like madmen at 5 o'clock in the morning. I could never do that because I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
But it's whatever.
It's funny you say that, because I've heard that before. Everyone always says I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. You know when my alarm is going off? 4:30 every single morning.
Oh God.
And I still feel deep down in my heart I am not a morning person, but I'm also not a night owl. But to me, it's like,
are you going to bed?
I'm trying to be in bed by 9 or 10.
That's like grandpa.
I know. Well, that's why I'm up at 4:30.
I'm like slamming Netflix at like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Look, if you were telling me you're working on a new business plan, then I would be like, yeah. But if you're going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, then, no, we all need that downtime, and I completely respect that. You obviously work your ass off. It comes down to responsibility, and obviously you've taken that throughout your whole life. You're taking responsibility for yourself, and that's what it's all about. It's like you could have walked away from the first doctor and said, you know what, he's probably right, and looked the other way and never found out what was wrong with you. But you kept pushing, and you went through doctor, and before you knew it, you had to do it yourself. And most people don't do that. That's probably the biggest problem. People waste away, and they never find out their true potential. Mm-hmm. And how good they could actually be. And that's one of the driving forces that I always tell myself every day. It's like, just keep moving forward, keep trying new things, keep educating yourself. Listen, I've learned a ton tonight. I wish the barbecue sauce was still around, because I love barbecue sauce.
We could add a taste test.
I know, right?
Just one lick. Everybody knows the rules.
Everyone knows. No, it's amazing to listen to. And these kinds of things motivate me to get up at 4:30 in the morning and say that I'm being a lazy, you know what, because someone else out there is killing it, even if they're watching Netflix all night.
You know, that cartoon where it's like it's a guy with a pickaxe and he's picking at he's in a cave, and like there's like he's an inch away from like a huge, like massive piece of gold.
Oh.
Yep.
And the average person just like they just stop and they're so close.
Yep. And he's turning around with the axe on his
Exactly.
back, like dejected.
Yep.
And yeah,
And you're right. It was, that's right. And then it's just like, you can see the back where it's like this big nugget of gold. Yeah.
But it's like that mentality is just to never stop. That's basically what it is. And that's something I live by too. You know, we always learn, you know, growing up, like, get a job, work your ass off, retire, and sit on the beach. Yeah. No. And then as I got older, I realized, you know, listening to a lot of people who I would consider my mentors, whether they're famous or personal, you know, it's like it never stops.
Yeah.
And the older I get, personally, I'm like, I don't want to retire and just sit down. Maybe I want to stop one thing but go on to another. I never want to sit down and just completely stop and relax. Like, you know, you do that when you're dead.
You know
It's mindset. I'm sorry to interject. It's mindset. It's like, I'm sure when you were doing that early on, it was like, it wasn't even work. You were saying you were doing 80-hour work weeks. Crazy. You probably were doing 100-hour work weeks here and there, which is mind-boggling. That's like Elon Musk type hours.
I was working hard. I wasn't working smart.
Yeah, but it's like, but the thing is, I've ridden this roller coaster, right? Work hard, invest, try to find ways for passive income so I can do nothing. Like, that's not really what I want to do. Because it's like, when I'm doing this, it's not work to me. And this, for some people, this is work. This is how they earn their living. Mm-hmm. They do podcasts or on TV or whatever. They're speaking publicly on the radio. Like, if this is what I did if this is what I do or did for a living, this wouldn't be work. I would be able to do this all day long. Exactly. I love doing this. As if I was a professional golfer, that wouldn't be work. It's really mindset. It's like, don't look for, work hard, enjoy, we have responsibilities as husbands and having children, and we have to do what we have to do for our families. But, it's mindset. It's like, what's the end? It's a means to an end. And then how can you do things later on that you enjoy working at or doing and developing yourself so that it's not work? And then, I think that people have this mindset sometimes where I want to work hard and then do nothing. It's like, I think when you're doing nothing, you're going to be like, well, this is what I wanted to do. This is terrible. And most people that retire, they're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, Yeah,
I think there's a big difference between living the good life and actually enjoying the good life. Yeah. And I think we're all so caught up on living a good life. And how often do we actually get to sit back and enjoy it? Like, I feel very blessed to have everything that I have. But it's like, when do I really take a step back and enjoy it? Because it's constantly go. You
gotta be like my co-host. You gotta go. You go on vacation once a week, and you live the goal, right? Where's Justin? Right, we can vouch for that out there, right, Mister Once a Week. No, right? You live the good life every once in a while, right? Balance. Yeah. You work hard and then you enjoy it. Don't wait to enjoy it down the road. Tomorrow may not come. And I think people need to have that balance, to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and I think that's important. And you've worked hard to be able to have these moments, right? And so has Nick, and so have I. That sometimes you get stuck where you think you can't take a second off, especially as an entrepreneur, as having that Portuguese working mentality. Like, I can't enjoy it. I save, invest, and don't spend. And I think that you should be charitable and try to give and try to enjoy, invest, and pay your bills and do all these things. But I mean, these are good problems to have to kind of decide what you want to do for fun, 100%. Right?
I mean, we're all blessed to be able to have conversations about this stuff and be in positions where, like, this is part of the decisions that we make, whether it's things that we do for work or things that we do for enjoyment. I mean, we're incredibly blessed, and we're blessed to be in a country that affords us the ability to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
So
I think the pandemic has opened a lot of the pandemic was weird because it's I think it created a lot of divisiveness, and people are a little people are definitely mentally not deranged, but have been mentally affected in many ways by this. I think, and I think we're going to see the remnants of it for some time to come, because it just disrupted our lives in, I think, a meaningful way, and in a way that no one really can contend with right now. But you know, it did do some good things, right? It allowed us some time to like slow time down and be with our families for a little bit. We've talked about that. And like being sick, right? It's kind of, you know, a microcosm of life. It's like you don't appreciate your health until you're sick, right? It's like when you feel the best. You feel the best once you're sick, and then you feel good again. You're like, wow. Like, whereas when you're healthy for a long time, you don't appreciate like, wow, I'm like, I can take a deep breath. I'm not coughing. I'm not wiping my nose. Yeah. Like, you know, big deal. Like, I feel like, no, it's a big deal. Like your health, a good night's sleep and all these. So, you know, just the same thing. It's like you work hard, you have responsibilities, but you know, and then you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. So it's all about perspective. And I think this podcast, Nick and I always talk about it. It gives people perspective, right? Because when you get stuck on your phone, distracting from life, or looking at other people's lives, and you get caught up on, you know, what's not reality. And then you have these real meaningful discussions, and you all of a sudden see someone who's a successful entrepreneur with a beautiful family. And you think, you know, Jonathan sold his multi-million-dollar business, and he's just living the life of Riley. Yeah. And it's like, no, you have trials and tribulations, struggles, and you work through things, and everybody has things that they need to do in life and work through, and we're kind of all doing this in different ways. And I think when we can be empathetic with each other and relatable with each other and work together to better all of our lives, I think we're better off. And I think when you are here sharing your story, and all our other guests, and Nick and I are here asking, you know, important questions and having these discussions, I think we're doing our fair share of like making the world a better place. So thank you for being a part of making the world a better place, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I appreciate that.
Who's tell us a little bit more before you know, this lovely conversation ends, about your rock at home and your family life. And you mentioned your wife is even an entrepreneur in her own regard right now.
Sure. So I have two little ones. Penelope, she's 5.5, and Julien is going to be 3 in about a month and a half. And
I think your wife has a name I'm familiar with.
Chloe.
My daughter's name.
Yeah. Yep. And Chloe is awesome. She is, like I mentioned, she's my rock. She's constantly kicking me in the butt. She was a former head of talent for an e-commerce company called Bonobos. She started there when they were about 25 people and helped them scale to, I think, about 350 people before they got acquired by Walmart. And before the acquisition, you know, her and I were always talking about like our future plans, and I knew that like she eventually wanted to start her own executive search firm. And I was someone that, you know, I knew that she always believed in me and, you know, was there to support me. And I told her, I said, look, you know, if this is something that you want to do, like, I think you should do it, and I've got your back, and we'll do it together. And I think being able to have someone in your corner that no matter what you're doing is going to keep you accountable and hold your, and have your back, and, you know, push you to do things. I think as an entrepreneur, it's something that's amazing to have. The other thing was, you know, I met her when I had nothing. I literally had just closed that business down, started, you know, was figuring out the next business I was going to do. And that's something that's truly special to have, is like having someone that was there for you at your worst deserves your best in spades. That's why I say, like, if I had to go through what I went through 10 times over to get to where I am today, I would absolutely do that just because of like what we have and what we've built together. And it's just something truly special. And, you know, just to circle out, you know, her career, like, you know, now she has a leadership search firm. It's her, and she has 3 other employees, and they do like heads of talent, chief people officers type roles for like all like the large major startups across the US. And she's like known in the talent community as like, the talent whisperer, like the people who in those roles that are hyper specialized in people operations. That's what she knows inside and out, because she was on the agency side and she was on an in-house person. She's been able to build a niche for herself that's, again, hyper specialized and focused, which fits really well into, what I believe in and what she believes in. And then aside from that, we have like investments that we do together. And, I told you earlier before the podcast started, like I was, investing in cryptocurrencies very early, and she put up with me looking at charts 24/7 and, trading NFTs and little pictures and all that SHIT that everyone jokes around about now. But like, these are things that like I found very exciting. It sparked my interest, and she said, all right, go at it, see what happens. And, I trust you, and having that has been awesome.
And you certainly were ahead of the curve when it comes to that stuff. That's for sure.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think that we're all fortunate that we have good partners in our lives, and much like a business or being an entrepreneur, when you have someone that you can rely on, that pushes you to be better, that holds you accountable, that's there for you and with you from the ground up. I mean, it's a shared story, and it definitely strengthens bonds for sure. And that's awesome that you can have that. And I mean, that's my wish for everybody, to have, a partner in crime and to create a family, because I think that's part of the bow of life. It certainly is for me, to make sure that you're doing the best you can to be a good person in your own community, right? In your small little family or your greater community. So when you can do that with someone that's, your sidekick and your friend and your cheerleader, I mean, what's better than that? I mean, we certainly have that. Our wives are a part of our podcast, and they support us, and they're not afraid to laugh at us when we screw up,
which is most of the time.
but they'll definitely encourage us and push us to be better. And I mean, what would life be like without someone like that, by your side? So you're very fortunate to have that. You certainly have had a wonderful life filled with a roller coaster of ups and downs.
Oh, yeah.
More ups certainly than downs. A bright future. You started from the ground floor, worked your way all the way up to the top. Now,
So
where do you go from here?
It's a good question. I think about like goals and what I want to do, and I like the idea of reinventing myself. I think I'm 37. I think my 40s will be the next iteration of me. What that's going to be, who knows? But I think I'm open to new and exciting challenges, whatever that may be. So I'm curious to see how this business continues to grow and evolve, and see what path that leads me on to whatever the next business is going to be. So,
Yeah.
we shall see. TBD.
TBD, TBL.
TBL. Thank you very much for having you. Can't wait to have you back. See what the next business successes are.
Maybe I'll get a mug next time instead of the water.
Well, you definitely get a mug. You'll get a mug.
The least we can do is
You'll definitely get a mug, maybe with a crypto coin in there. I don't
There you
know.
go.
Figure something out.
You can tell we're in our infancy, where only Steve and I have mugs, and the guests really don't get much but unmarked bottles of water.
The next time you're on, we promise you a gift bag. You'll have all kinds of goodies.
I knew you guys went. Love it.
Well, yeah, there you go. You'll always be able to say, I was one of the first guests on that podcast when they were nothing. They had like 5 people watching. Well, again, thank you. The audience, I'm sure, is going to thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe. Punch the like button, punch it, smack it. I don't know.
Ring the bell.
We got a tech professional. What do we tell them to do? What do you
like and share? You guys hit it.
Like and share.
Share.
Come on.
Subscribe. Hit us up.
Help a brother out.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Thank you.